"This is a classy event," my brother's fiancée said, pointing to a folding chair behind a plant. "Maybe you should leave." I looked at the whole venue I paid for and said, maybe I should. Then I canceled everything right away. The music stopped and the wedding was ruined immediately. Hey Reddit, my brother's wedding was last Saturday. Was supposed to be anyway. I paid for the entire thing. Venue, catering, flowers, DJ, the works. Total cost? $58,000. Then his fiancée told me I didn't belong at their classy event and pointed to a folding chair behind a decorative plant as my assigned seat. So I canceled everything. Right there. Mid-ceremony. The look on their faces when the music cut out was absolutely priceless. Let me back up and explain how we got here, because this wasn't just about seating arrangements. I'm Marcus, 34 male, and I work in commercial real estate development. Started as a junior analyst 12 years ago, worked my way up to partner at a firm that handles major projects across 3 states. Good money, long hours, but I've built something I'm proud of. Own my house outright in a neighborhood where the median home value is $400,000. Drive a Ford F-150 that's paid off, and keep a healthy emergency fund because I learned early that family will disappoint you when you least expect it. My brother Tyler, 28 male, is basically a professional disappointment wrapped in designer clothes he can't afford. Dropped out of college twice, bounced between retail jobs and get-rich-quick schemes, currently works part-time at a supplement store while calling himself a wellness entrepreneur. Lives with 3 roommates in an apartment complex that peaked in 1987, drives a BMW lease he can barely afford, and has never saved more than $500 in his life. But Tyler's got something I apparently never had: the ability to make our parents think his failures are just temporary setbacks, while my successes are just lucky breaks. Growing up, I was the responsible one. Good grades, part-time job in high school, washing dishes at a local restaurant, helped with household expenses when Dad's construction business went through rough patches during economic downturns. Tyler was the charming one. Could talk his way out of trouble, make Mom laugh when she was stressed about bills, convince Dad that his latest entrepreneurial venture was definitely going to work this time. When I graduated high school with a 3.8 GPA and a partial scholarship to State University, the family celebration was dinner at Applebee's and a card with $50 cash. When Tyler barely scraped together enough credits to graduate 2 years later with a 2.1 GPA, they threw him a party with a professionally decorated cake, invited the neighbors, and took photos like he'd won the Nobel Prize. Tyler worked so hard to overcome his learning challenges. Mom would tell people at the grocery store, the bank, basically anyone who would listen. Meanwhile, I was working 25 hours a week at the campus library while taking 18 credit hours because my partial scholarship still left me with significant tuition bills and living expenses. The pattern continued through college. I studied business and finance, graduated summa cum laude, landed an entry-level position at Morrison & Associates Real Estate Development, and started building my career methodically. 60-hour weeks, taking on projects nobody else wanted, learning every aspect of commercial development from site selection to financing to construction management. Tyler started college, dropped out after a semester to pursue music. He bought a guitar and learned 3 chords. Then went back for graphic design, dropped out again to try a coding boot camp that he quit after 2 weeks. Then back to college for business, which he also didn't finish because the professors didn't understand his innovative thinking. Each time Tyler quit something, he'd call it pivoting, or following his passion, or refusing to be boxed in by conventional expectations. Each time I achieved something, it was because I was lucky, or had it easier somehow, or just played it safe instead of taking real risks. When I got my first promotion to senior analyst, Dad's response was, "Must be nice working for a company that appreciates you." Tyler's got that entrepreneurial spirit. He's not built for the corporate ladder. He thinks outside the box. When I bought my first house at 26, a modest 3-bedroom ranch that needed work but had good bones, Mom said, "Your job must pay really well." Tyler's more interested in experiences than material things. He's got his priorities straight. Tyler's experiences included 2 failed attempts at starting online businesses, one selling motivational ebooks he never wrote, another drop-shipping phone accessories from China, a brief period where he tried to become a social media influencer by posting workout videos in our parents' basement, and about 6 months where he sold essential oils to our relatives before everyone got tired of his sales pitches at family gatherings. But here's where things get relevant to the wedding disaster. Tyler has always known exactly how to manipulate our parents into making me feel guilty about my success, while excusing his failures as character-building experiences. When I was 29, Tyler called me crying at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. He was behind on rent, his car was about to get repossessed, and he needed $3,000 to get back on his feet. This was right after he'd spent 2 months traveling through Europe on credit cards, because he was finding himself and gaining life experience that money can't buy. I said no, not because I couldn't afford it. I had the money sitting in my savings account, but because I was tired of bailing him out of problems he created through irresponsible choices while never learning from the consequences. Tyler immediately called Mom. Within an hour, I got a conference call with both parents about how I was abandoning family and letting pride come before love. Dad chimed in about how success means nothing if you can't help those close to you. Tyler made some mistakes, but he's learned from them, Mom insisted, using her martyred mother voice. He just needs one chance to prove himself, one chance to show he can be responsible. How many chances does he get? I asked. Because I'm pretty sure this is chance number 15. You take, family helps family, Dad said, pulling out his favorite line. When I was building my business, my brother helped me out with a loan for equipment. That's what families do. We stick together through thick and thin. The guilt trip continued for 2 hours. They painted Tyler as a struggling young man who'd made mistakes but was ready to turn his life around, while positioning me as the successful but cold older brother who'd forgotten his roots. Every achievement I'd worked for was reframed as a reason I should support Tyler's irresponsibility. I ended up giving Tyler the money, not because I believed he'd learned anything, but because the alternative was months of family guilt trips, passive-aggressive comments at every gathering, and being painted as the villain who turned his back on family when they needed him most. Tyler used the money to pay his immediate debts, then celebrated his fresh start with a weekend trip to Vegas with his friends that he documented extensively on social media. When I pointed out that Vegas wasn't exactly a prudent financial decision for someone who'd just been bailed out of debt, Tyler accused me of being controlling and bitter. Just because you're successful doesn't mean you get to judge how other people live their lives, he said. Maybe if you took some risks and actually lived a little, you'd understand that life is about more than just accumulating money. That became the family narrative. I was successful, but bitter and controlling, while Tyler was struggling, but had the right attitude about life. He was living authentically while I was just grinding away in corporate America. The cycle repeated every 18 months or so. Tyler would get into financial trouble through poor choices. I'd initially refuse to help. Family pressure would mount with carefully orchestrated campaigns involving multiple relatives, and I'd eventually give in to keep the peace. Each time, the amount got bigger, and Tyler's sense of entitlement grew stronger. There was the $4,500 for a business course that would teach him everything he needed to know about e-commerce. The $2,800 for photography equipment when he decided to become a wedding photographer. He shot exactly one wedding before giving up. The $6,200 when his roommate moved out unexpectedly and stuck him with the full rent for 3 months. Each bailout came with promises that this was the last time, that Tyler had finally learned his lesson, that he was turning his life around. Each time, my parents framed my eventual assistance as an investment in Tyler's future, rather than enabling his irresponsibility. Last year's crisis was the big one. Tyler had managed to rack up $18,000 in credit card debt while launching his wellness coaching business. This involved buying inventory for supplements he was going to sell online, renting space for workshops that never happened because nobody signed up, and purchasing a bunch of certification courses that he never completed. The supplement inventory sat in Mom and Dad's garage for months. Boxes of protein powder and vitamins that Tyler couldn't sell because he'd never bothered to research the market or understand basic business principles like profit margins and customer acquisition. When the business predictably failed after 6 months of minimal effort, Tyler was facing bankruptcy at 27. But instead of accepting responsibility, he crafted a narrative about how the market wasn't ready for his innovative approach to wellness, and how he'd learned valuable lessons that would make his next venture successful. The family pressure campaign was intense. Mom called me crying about how Tyler was going to lose everything, and how I was the only one who could save him. Dad gave me lectures about family loyalty and helping those less fortunate. Tyler's got heart, Dad would say during these conversations. He takes risks, puts himself out there. That takes courage. Just because it didn't work out doesn't mean he should be punished for trying. There's a difference between taking calculated risks and making irresponsible decisions, I replied. That's easy to say when you've got a steady paycheck and no dependents, Mom shot back. Tyler's trying to build something. That's harder than just showing up to an office every day. The just showing up to an office comment particularly stung. I'd worked 80-hour weeks for years, built relationships with clients across 3 states, learned complex financial modeling and project management, negotiated million-dollar deals, and earned every promotion through demonstrated competence. But in my family's narrative, I was just lucky to have a boring, stable job, while Tyler was the brave entrepreneur. They also conveniently ignored the fact that Tyler's building something phase had cost me over $25,000 in bailouts over the previous 5 years, while my steady paycheck had been funding his lifestyle choices and poor decisions. I paid off Tyler's debt, not because I believed the family rhetoric, but because the alternative was watching him declare bankruptcy and move back in with our parents, which would have made every family gathering unbearable and probably would have resulted in more requests for financial support. Tyler's response to my $18,000 gift? Thanks, bro. I really appreciate you believing in me. This means I can focus on my next venture without the stress of debt hanging over me. Believing in him. Like I'd invested in a promising startup instead of prevented a financial disaster. And he was already talking about his next venture before he'd even finished cleaning up the mess from his current failure. 2 months later, Tyler announced he was engaged to Brianna. Brianna is everything Tyler thinks he deserves, but has never earned. Beautiful in that Instagram influencer way, social media savvy with 15,000 followers who think her lifestyle is aspirational, comes from a wealthy family, and has never worked a day in her life unless you count managing her personal brand and posting sponsored content for skincare products. Her father owns a chain of luxury car dealerships across 2 states. Her mother does charity work as a hobby because she doesn't need the income. And Brianna herself has a master's degree in art history from a private university that she's never used because the art world is too political and doesn't appreciate innovative thinking. Brianna fits perfectly into Tyler's fantasy of himself as someone who deserves luxury without earning it. She validates his belief that his failures aren't really failures, just temporary setbacks on his path to the success he's obviously destined for. In her social circle, entrepreneurship is automatically cool regardless of results, and Tyler's various failed ventures make him seem adventurous rather than irresponsible. When Tyler introduced her to the family at Sunday dinner, she spent the entire evening talking about her family's recent trip to Italy, their plans to renovate their vacation home in the mountains, and how she was considering starting a lifestyle blog, because so many people have asked for advice about living authentically. Mom was completely charmed. She's so sophisticated, she told me afterward. Tyler really knows how to pick them. She's got class. Dad was impressed by Brianna's family's success. Those are the kind of connections that could really help Tyler's career, he said, as if Tyler had a career to help. Her father's built something really impressive with those dealerships. I found Brianna exhausting. Not because she was wealthy or privileged, plenty of successful people come from money and still work hard, but because she had Tyler's same entitled attitude without even his minimal work ethic. At least Tyler had tried to start businesses, even if they failed spectacularly. Brianna had never tried to do anything except look good and spend other people's money while posting about it online. But I kept my opinions to myself. Tyler was an adult, and if he wanted to marry someone whose idea of a challenge was choosing between yoga and Pilates while documenting both options for her followers, that was his choice. Then came the wedding planning. Tyler and Brianna announced their engagement with a professionally photographed proposal on a beach in Malibu. The photos, which I later learned cost $2,000 for a 2-hour session, showed Tyler on one knee in the sand, while Brianna looked surprised and delighted in a flowing white dress that definitely hadn't been chosen randomly. The ring, which featured prominently in the photos that Brianna posted across all her social media accounts, was a 2-carat princess-cut diamond that cost $12,000. Tyler financed it over 3 years at 18% interest because his credit score made traditional financing impossible. The wedding planning began immediately. Brianna had been dreaming of her perfect day since she was 8 years old, and she had very specific ideas about what that meant. Destination ceremony at a historic venue, designer dress from a boutique in Los Angeles, full professional photography package with engagement photos and day of coverage, seated dinner for 150 guests, premium open bar with top-shelf liquor, live band instead of a DJ, and luxury accommodations for out-of-town family. Tyler was completely on board with all of this. In his mind, the wedding would be the perfect launch for their new life together, demonstrating to everyone, especially Brianna's successful family, that he'd finally made it. The wedding would be proof that his various business failures had been leading to this moment when he'd married into wealth and connections. There was just one small problem. Neither Tyler nor Brianna had any money to pay for any of it. Brianna's parents were wealthy, but they'd already spent substantial money on her older sister's wedding 2 years earlier, a $75,000 affair in Napa Valley that had been featured in a regional magazine. They were willing to contribute $15,000 to Tyler and Brianna's wedding, which was generous, but nowhere near enough for the celebration Brianna envisioned. Tyler's contribution to the wedding fund was approximately $800 and a lot of enthusiasm. The family meeting happened at Mom and Dad's house on a Sunday afternoon in February. Tyler and Brianna presented their wedding vision with the kind of detailed planning usually reserved for military operations. They had venue options with professional photography, catering menus with pricing tiers, photographer portfolios with package comparisons, and a comprehensive budget spreadsheet that broke down costs by category. The total cost for their dream wedding was $58,000. "We've got Brianna's parents contributing $15,000, Tyler announced proudly, as if negotiating this contribution had been a major business accomplishment. "And we've saved up about $3,000 ourselves." That left a gap of $40,000, which Tyler and Brianna looked around the room expecting someone else to fill. Mom and Dad exchanged glances. Dad cleared his throat and shifted in his recliner. "Son, that's a lot of money. We'd love to help, but after the business slowdown last year." The truth was that Dad's construction company had been struggling since the 2008 recession and never fully recovered. They were getting by, making their mortgage payments and covering basic expenses, but they didn't have $40,000 in discretionary income for a wedding. Their contribution would be maybe $2,000 if they stretched their budget. Tyler looked disappointed but not surprised. Then all eyes turned to me. "Marcus has been so successful lately," Mom said carefully, using her diplomatic voice. "And he's always been so generous with family." Brianna chimed in with her perfectly practiced smile. "We'd be honored if you wanted to be part of making our special day happen. It would mean so much to have your support." I sat there processing what was happening. They weren't asking me to contribute to the wedding. They were asking me to pay for nearly 3/4 of it. And they were framing it as an honor instead of a massive financial burden that would cost me more than most people's annual salary. "That's a significant amount of money," I said slowly. "But think about what it represents," Tyler said, leaning forward with the enthusiasm he usually reserved for his failed business ventures. "This isn't just a wedding. It's the start of our life together. And having family support means everything to us." Brianna nodded earnestly. "The venues we're looking at are some of the most beautiful in the state. Your investment would create memories that last forever." Investment. Like I was buying stock in their marriage instead of subsidizing their party. "Plus," Tyler continued, "this could be great for networking. Brianna's father is bringing some of his business associates. These are the kind of connections that could open doors for all of us." I made what turned out to be a crucial mistake. I said I'd think about it. Over the next 2 weeks, the pressure campaign was relentless and sophisticated. Tyler called daily with updates about venues they were about to lose if we didn't make a decision soon. Brianna sent me Pinterest boards showing centerpiece options and color schemes, always emphasizing how tasteful and elegant everything would be. Mom forwarded me articles about the importance of family support during major life transitions. The emotional manipulation was particularly clever. I wasn't just being asked to pay for a wedding. I was being asked to demonstrate my love for my brother, my commitment to family values, and my growth as a person who'd learned to share his success with those he cared about. Dad pulled me aside after a family dinner at their house. "Son, I know it's a lot of money, but Tyler's finally found something real with Brianna. A wedding like this would set them up right, help them start their marriage with confidence and connections. And if they can't afford the wedding they want, that's not the point. The point is that you can afford it, and they need help. When you were Tyler's age, you were just getting started too. He'll be successful in his own time, but right now he needs support." The comparison was insulting. When I was Tyler's age, I'd been working for 6 years, had already received 2 promotions, and was managing commercial development projects worth millions of dollars. Tyler was selling supplements part-time and calling himself an entrepreneur. But I agreed to pay for the wedding. Not because I believed any of their arguments, but because I wanted to avoid months of family conflict and guilt trips. And part of me hoped that maybe this gesture would finally satisfy Tyler's sense of entitlement and we could move forward with a healthier relationship. I was wrong about that. Once I agreed to pay, Tyler and Brianna's attitude toward me became even more entitled. I wasn't just Tyler's generous older brother anymore. I was their personal ATM with an unlimited credit line. Every decision they made was automatically my financial responsibility. The original budget was $58,000, including their contributions. By the time all the decisions were made, the total cost had ballooned to $73,000, and they expected me to cover every overage without complaint. The venue alone ended up costing $28,000 instead of the original $20,000, because Brianna decided she needed the premium package with upgraded linens, additional lighting, and exclusive use of the bridal suite for the entire day. When I questioned the extra cost, she explained that the basic package was suitable for more casual events, but their wedding required elevated sophistication. The photographer went from $4,000 to $7,500 because they wanted both engagement photos and day of coverage, plus a second photographer to capture candid moments and artistic details. The catering jumped from $18,000 to $24,000 because Brianna insisted on the premium menu with specialty cocktails, upgraded appetizers, and a dessert station in addition to the wedding cake. Each increase was presented as essential to their vision, and each time they looked at me expectantly to cover the difference without making them feel guilty about the additional expense. The upgraded lighting really makes the venue magical, Brianna explained, when the venue cost increased by $8,000. It's worth the extra investment for photos that will last a lifetime. Tyler nodded along enthusiastically. We could go with the basic package, but this is our wedding. We want it to be perfect. We want people to remember this day forever. Perfect for them, paid for by me. The florist bill increased from $3,000 to $5,500 because Brianna wanted upgraded centerpieces and a ceremony arch that required special ordering. The musicians went from a DJ at $1,200 to a live band at $4,000 because live music would create the right atmosphere for Brianna's family. The bar package increased when they upgraded from standard liquor to premium brands. Every change was justified as necessary for the caliber of event they were hosting, but nobody ever asked if I was comfortable with the additional costs. The final insult came 3 weeks before the wedding, when Tyler called to discuss the seating arrangements. We're trying to balance everything perfectly, he explained over the phone. Brianna's family has some pretty important people coming, and we want to make sure the reception flows well. Okay, where do you need me to sit? Well, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. Brianna's parents are bringing some business associates, and we need to make sure they're seated prominently. Her father's considering bringing me into his dealership network, so these relationships are really important for our future. Right. So where am I sitting? We've got you at a great table near the back. You'll be with some of Brianna's college friends and their boyfriends. Really fun group of people. The back. At the wedding I was paying for, Tyler wanted to seat me in the back with a bunch of strangers, so Brianna's parents' business associates could have the prominent tables. Tyler, I'm paying for this entire wedding. I know, and we're so grateful. But you understand how important tonight is for our future, right? These connections could change everything for us. Change everything for them. Using my money to network with Brianna's family's business contacts while relegating me to the social equivalent of the kids' table. I should have canceled everything right then. But I didn't want to ruin their wedding 3 weeks before the date, so I agreed to the seating arrangement and told myself it was just one night. The day of the wedding arrived. The venue was perfect, a restored historic mansion with gardens that looked like something from a magazine. Fairmont Estate, built in 1924, with original hardwood floors, crystal chandeliers, and windows overlooking manicured gardens and a small lake. The flowers were gorgeous, the catering smelled incredible, and everything was exactly what Tyler and Brianna had envisioned. I arrived early to check on setup details, wearing the navy suit Tyler had specifically requested so I wouldn't clash with the wedding party photos. The venue coordinator, Michelle, recognized me immediately. Mr. Williams, so good to finally meet you in person. Thank you so much for making all this possible. Tyler and Brianna are lucky to have such a supportive brother. Michelle had been my primary contact throughout the planning process. Every vendor payment, every contract modification, every upgrade request had gone through her and been approved by me. She knew exactly who was paying for everything, and she'd been professional and helpful throughout the entire process. I walked around the grounds admiring the setup. The ceremony space overlooked the lake with mountains in the background, white chairs arranged in perfect rows with an aisle lined with rose petals. The reception area had round tables with ivory linens, gold accents, and centerpieces that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Everything was perfect. Everything I'd paid for was exactly what Tyler and Brianna wanted. The attention to detail was impressive, from the upgraded lighting that cast everything in a warm glow to the premium linens that felt luxurious to the touch. Then Brianna arrived for photos, and everything went sideways. She looked stunning in a dress that cost more than my monthly car payment. Vera Wang, custom-fitted, with intricate beadwork that caught the light beautifully. Her hair and makeup were flawless, done by professionals who'd arrived at 6 a.m. to begin the transformation. She was practically glowing with excitement, posing for photos with her bridesmaids in matching silk robes. Tyler looked good too, relaxed and confident in a way I hadn't seen from him since we were kids. His tuxedo was perfectly tailored, his hair styled professionally, and he had the expression of someone who felt like he'd finally achieved something significant. I approached them to say hello and wish them well before the ceremony began. Marcus! Tyler grinned and pulled me into a hug. Can you believe this day is finally here? Everything looks incredible. Better than we even imagined. It really does, I agreed. You two should be very happy with how everything turned out. Brianna smiled politely, the kind of smile you give to someone who's useful but not particularly important. Yes, it's exactly what we envisioned. Thank you for contributing to making this possible. Contributing. Like I'd brought a casserole to a potluck instead of funding their entire fantasy wedding. The venue coordinator mentioned you wanted to check the seating chart one more time, Tyler said. Actually, no. I'm sure you've got everything handled the way you want it. That's when Brianna's expression changed subtly. The polite smile became more forced. Actually, there was one small thing. We had to make some last-minute adjustments to accommodate some important guests of my parents. I hope you don't mind being flexible. She led me across the reception area, past tables set with fine china and crystal glasses, toward what I assumed would be my assigned table near the back. Instead, she stopped in a corner of the room and pointed to a single folding chair that had been placed behind a large decorative plant. Not at a table, not with other guests. A single metal folding chair hidden behind foliage like a punishment seat for misbehaving children. This is actually a really special spot, Brianna continued, her voice taking on the patronizing tone people use with difficult children. You'll have a perfect view of everything, but it's more private for someone who might not be comfortable with the social aspects of the evening. I stared at the chair. It was the kind of metal folding chair you'd find in a church basement, completely different from the elegant Chiavari chairs at all the actual tables. Someone had literally brought in a different chair and hidden it behind a 7-foot decorative plant arrangement. This is where you want me to sit? Behind a plant? It's not behind a plant, Brianna laughed, but there was an edge to it. It's near the garden area. Very peaceful. Some people prefer quieter spaces at large events. Tyler jumped in, trying to sound reasonable. The thing is, we ended up with more of Brianna's family than expected, and some of her father's business associates from the dealerships needed proper seating for networking purposes. You understand how important these connections are for our future. So you're seating me behind a plant. Marcus, don't be dramatic, Brianna said, her voice sharpening. This is a classy event with important people. We thought you'd appreciate a quieter spot where you could enjoy the celebration without feeling pressured to socialize with people you don't know. A classy event. The event I'd paid $73,000 to make possible. The event that existed only because I'd written check after check for every single vendor, every upgrade, every detail they'd demanded. Maybe you should just try to enjoy the evening instead of making everything about you, Brianna continued. This is supposed to be our special day. Our special day. Paid for entirely by the person they'd just told to sit behind a plant, so he wouldn't embarrass them in front of people who might be useful to their careers. I looked around the venue. Every flower arrangement, every table setting, every piece of elegant decor existed because of my money. The band setting up on stage was playing because I'd written them a check. The bartender arranging premium liquor was there because I'd paid for an open bar with top-shelf brands. The photographer adjusting his equipment had been hired with my credit card. Every single detail of their classy event existed because of me, and they wanted me to hide behind a plant so I wouldn't embarrass them in front of people who might be useful to their careers. The guests were starting to arrive. I could see Brianna's parents greeting business associates at the entrance, people in expensive suits who looked like they belonged at country club events. These were the people who would get the prime seating, while the person who paid for everything sat alone behind decorative foliage. You're right, I said finally. Maybe I should leave. Tyler and Brianna both looked relieved, like I'd finally understood my place in their hierarchy. I think that's probably best, Brianna agreed with obvious satisfaction. We'll be sure to save you some cake. I pulled out my phone and called Michelle, the venue coordinator. Hi, Michelle, this is Marcus Williams. I need you to cancel everything. Right now. Tyler's face went white. What are you doing? Canceling the wedding. All of it. Vendors, catering, music, everything. You can't do that, Brianna shrieked. People are already arriving. Actually, I can. Every contract is in my name. Every vendor has been paid by me. I'm the client and I'm canceling the event. Michelle's voice came through the phone speaker. Mr. Williams, are you sure? The ceremony is supposed to start in 30 minutes. I'm completely sure. Please inform all vendors immediately that the event is canceled and they should begin packing up. I hung up and looked at Tyler and Brianna's horrified faces. This is insane, Tyler shouted. You can't ruin our wedding because you're mad about a seating arrangement. I'm not ruining your wedding because of a seating arrangement. I'm canceling an event that I paid for because you've made it clear that I'm not welcome as a guest. Brianna was frantically texting someone, probably her parents. This is illegal. You can't just cancel contracts without notice. Every contract specifies that the client can cancel at any time. I'm the client, I'm canceling. The venue coordinator's voice came over the sound system. Ladies and gentlemen, we regret to inform you that tonight's event has been canceled. We apologize for any inconvenience. The music stopped mid-song. Catering staff started collecting appetizer trays that had just been set out. Guests who'd been taking photos in the garden area looked around in confusion. Tyler grabbed my arm. Marcus, please. We can fix this. We'll find you a better seat. You can sit wherever you want. It's not about the seat, Tyler. It's about respect. You took my money, planned your dream wedding with it, and then treated me like an unwelcome guest who might embarrass you. Brianna was crying now, her perfect makeup starting to run. You're destroying our lives over your ego. No, I'm stopping you from using my money to fund an event where I'm not wanted. The band was already packing up their equipment. The photographer approached us hesitantly. Excuse me, should I continue taking photos or? The event is canceled, I told him. You'll still be paid in full as per our contract. Guests were starting to leave, looking confused and disappointed. Some were taking photos of the chaos on their phones. Brianna's parents rushed over, her father's face red with anger. What the hell is going on? He demanded. Tyler tried to explain, but his words came out in a panicked jumble about seating arrangements and misunderstandings and family drama. Brianna's father looked at me. You're the one who canceled this? I'm the one who paid for it, and then got told I wasn't welcome at it. So you decided to ruin their wedding day instead of being an adult about it? I could have explained the years of being taken for granted, the pattern of entitlement, the way Tyler and Brianna had treated my financial support as something they deserved, rather than something they should appreciate. But there wasn't any point. I decided to stop funding an event where I wasn't wanted, I said simply. By then, most of the vendors were already packing up. The efficiency was actually impressive. Within 45 minutes, the entire elaborate wedding setup was being dismantled and loaded into trucks. Tyler followed me to my car, alternating between begging and threatening. Marcus, please. We can reschedule. We'll do everything differently. You can plan the whole seating chart. It's too late, Tyler. This is our wedding day. You're destroying the most important day of our lives. You destroyed it when you decided I wasn't good enough to sit with your other guests. Brianna appeared behind him, still in her wedding dress, but looking like she'd been through a hurricane. We'll sue you for this. For what? Canceling an event I paid for? For emotional distress? For ruining our lives? For being a vindictive asshole? I got in my car and rolled down the window. Brianna, you got exactly what you asked for. You said maybe I should leave, so I left, and I took my money with me. The drive home was surreal. I kept expecting to feel guilty or regretful, but instead I felt lighter than I had in months. For the first time in years, I'd set a boundary and enforced it without backing down under family pressure. My phone started ringing before I even got home. Tyler, Brianna, Mom, Dad, several relatives I barely talked to. I ignored all of them and went inside to my quiet house. The aftermath was predictably dramatic. Tyler and Brianna had to call every guest personally to explain that the wedding was canceled. Most of the vendors kept their payments since the cancellation was last minute and not their fault. The venue, caterer, band, photographer, and florist all got paid in full for services not rendered. Tyler and Brianna ended up having a courthouse ceremony 2 weeks later with their immediate families. No reception, no party, no celebration. Just a brief legal procedure to make their marriage official. The family reaction was split but predictable. Mom and Dad were furious with me for ruining Tyler's special day and acting like a spoiled child. Several aunts and uncles weighed in with opinions about family loyalty and forgiveness. But some family members quietly reached out to express support. My cousin David, who'd watched Tyler's pattern of entitlement for years, called to say I'd done the right thing. My uncle Robert, who'd lent Tyler money that was never repaid, said it was about time someone held him accountable. The most telling response came from Brianna's family. Her parents, who'd initially been furious about the wedding cancellation, apparently had some serious conversations with their daughter about the circumstances that led to it. Within a month, it became clear that Brianna's father had decided not to bring Tyler into his dealership network after all. Turns out that when you dig into the details of what happened, it's hard to defend seating your wedding's sole financial backer behind a decorative plant, while networking with business associates at tables his money paid for. Tyler and Brianna's marriage struggled from the beginning. The wedding cancellation became a symbol of their financial dependence and poor judgment. They'd started their marriage with massive debt, no prospects for the business connections they'd counted on, and a family scandal that followed them to every social gathering. 6 months after the courthouse ceremony, Tyler called me, not to apologize, but to ask for help again. They were behind on rent, Brianna's spending habits were unsustainable, and he needed $5,000 to get back on track. For the first time in my adult life, I said no without hesitation. Not with explanations or conditions or lectures about responsibility. Just no. But we're family, Tyler said, using the same line that had worked for years. Family doesn't seat family behind plants at events they paid for, I replied. Tyler tried to argue that I was still holding a grudge over a misunderstanding, and that everyone makes mistakes. But the pattern was too clear now. Tyler's mistakes only counted as mistakes when he faced consequences for them. When someone else absorbed the cost, they became learning experiences. I wished him luck and hung up. A year later, Tyler and Brianna divorced. The financial stress combined with Brianna's disappointment about not gaining access to Tyler's successful family connections made their relationship unsustainable. Tyler moved back in with our parents. Brianna moved back in with hers. The fairy tale they'd tried to create with my money lasted approximately 18 months. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.